Broadcasting from beautiful downtown Tallahassee, it's Nantan Lupin at the Drive-In.
Welcome to episode 20, White Zombie, 1932. Today we are following the Bela Lugosi line. Believe it or not, this was the first time I have ever seen White Zombie, 1932, and all I can say is, why did I wait so long? As far as I'm concerned, this is right up there with Dracula and Frankenstein. This movie was not received well when it was first released, but has gained in popularity since its rediscovery in the 1960s. The band White Zombie was named for this movie. The film was originally shot in 11 days. Bela Lugosi always regretted that he was only paid $500 for this role. Lugosi is amazing with his pointed widow's peak, very bushy eyebrows, a split mustache, and a goatee. He uses his Dracula stare to great effect in this movie. They made some nice camera effects with glowing eyes in the background that transformed into Lugosi's character staring and transmitting his zombie instructions. I won't spend any time discussing Bela Lugosi because he was covered in episode 10 of this podcast, and frankly, I don't want to try and say the name of his birth town again. In this movie, he played Murder Legendary,
Murder Legendre,
the Lord of the Zombies. Madge Bellamy was cast as Madeline Short, and following her marriage, Madeline Parker. Bellamy was a fairly successful silent-era actress. When the talkies began, her roles began to wane. Her silent training served her well in this role, as a large part of the time she could not talk. In 1943, she fired 3 shots at her ex-lover. She later filed for divorce from the victim, although they were never married. This ended her career, and she lived poorly for her remaining years. Joseph Cawthorn portrayed Dr. Brenner, a missionary that had lived in Haiti for many years. He had a thick accent and gave a little comic relief in this movie. Cawthorn began working on the stage in the 19th century. When his career had run its course, he moved to Hollywood in 1927. He began his second career in film and worked opposite the greatest stars of the era. He made over 50 films, with his last being released in 1942. Robert Fraser played the role of Charles Beaumont, a rich landowner that became obsessed with Madeline Short and was willing to pay any price to obtain her love. Fraser was in well over 200 shorts and films beginning in 1912 and continuing through the mid-1940s. John Harron was cast as Neil Parker, the naive fiancé of Madeline Short. Harron was in 167 shorts and films from 1918 to 1940. He died early at the age of 36. Brandon Hurst was Silver, the butler for Beaumont. I kept noticing him and expecting him to have a larger role than he did. When I started doing my research, I found out that he had been a stage actor but transitioned into films and made 129 films before his death. Notably, he was Jehan Frollo in Hunchback of Notre Dame, 1932. Murder had a main group of zombies that did his bidding. They were all of his enemies or teachers. Some of the looks and hairstyles of this group seem to have been borrowed by later films. The zombie henchmen include George Burr McCannon, Frederick Peters, and John Prince. Finally, I want to mention Clarence Muse, who was uncredited as the coach driver. He was first seen driving the coach at night and is stopped by a funeral taking place in the middle of the road. I was waiting for some stereotypical fright, but was surprised by the composure the driver showed. Muse held a law degree from Dickerson College in Pennsylvania. He was the first African American to star in a film. During his long and varied career, he was active in preventing stereotypical roles for African Americans. Story. The story begins in 1932 in Haiti with Madeline Short, Madge Bellamy, traveling with her fiancé Neil Parker, John Harron. The coach driver, Clarence Muse, stops the coach for a night funeral that is taking place in the middle of the road. He tells the couple that this protects the dead from grave robbers. The driver crosses the grave and continues on towards the home of Charles Beaumont, Robert W. Fraser. Beaumont had apparently met the young couple on the ship from New York and had taken an interest in them. He has arranged for a preacher so they can be married that night at his house. The driver stops when he sees a lone figure by the road that turns out to be Murder Legendary,
Murder Legendre,
Bela Lugosi. He is wearing a large floppy hat and a cape, and I clearly would not have stopped. Murder stares intensely at Madeline and grabs her scarf. The driver sees the crew of zombie henchmen ahead, much like grinning ghost waiting for a ride. He spurs the horse onward, and the scarf is ripped from Madeline's neck in mock death. The couple and the driver arrive at Beaumont's house, and the driver gives another zombie warning.
Why did you drive like that, you fool? We might have been killed.
Worse than that, monsieur. We might have been caught.
Caught? By whom? Those men you spoke to?
They are not men, monsieur. They are dead bodies.
Dead?
Yes, monsieur. Zombies. The living dead.
About this time, Dr. Brunner, Joseph Cathorn, a local priest, arrives. He tells the couple that Beaumont is not the type to help out without a reason and suggests they leave the island. Beaumont greets the couple and then dashes off to Murder's zombie mill to get some zombie-creating juice. As he walks through the mill, slow-walking zombies are dumping sugarcane into a grinder. When I saw the grinding blades, I thought, someone is going in, but it happened 5 seconds later when a zombie tipped over. I've always wondered if you could run a successful business with zombies. They can work 24 hours a day as long as the drums are going. But they are so slow. Would paying someone to work 12 hours a day be cheaper? You wouldn't have to pay for drummers and they would work a lot faster. Beaumont refuses Murder's extended hand, and the face and hand of Murder clench in the agony of being rejected. Murder gives Beaumont the elixir and says a pin drop in a rose or a glass of wine will do.
Only a pin wine, Monsieur Beaumont. In a glass of wine. Or perhaps a flower.
Foreshadowing. Beaumont returns home, and against Dr. Brunner's advice, Madeline is dressed for the wedding. Beaumont gives her the hard press to marry him as they're walking down the stairs to the wedding. This is way before The Graduate. When she rebuffs him, he doses her with a zombie flower. The wedding goes fine, and later, as the celebration commences, Murder carves a candle into the form of a female and wraps it in Madeline's scarf. As he holds the doll in fire, Madeline sees Murder's eyes in her wineglass and dies a zombie death. Neil evidently heads to the local bar where he tries to drink his pain away. The happy dancing and drinking shadows on the wall give a surreal effect. He sees Madeline's image and staggers away to her grave. At the same time, Murder, Beaumont, and the henchmen are removing the body.
Zombies? Yes, they are my servants. In their lifetime, they were my enemies. Ago, the witch doctor, once my master. Van Gelder, the swine, swollen with riches. Him, yes, I have troubled times. His Excellency Richard, once Minister of the Interior. Garcia, brigand chief. Marquis, captain of gendarmerie. And this is Chauvin, the high executioner, who almost executed me.
Neil arrives too late to help, but hey, he was too drunk to help anyway. Beaumont has Madeline under his power and uses her as a zombie piano player. He is upset by her vacant eyes and lack of emotion.
They can't bring back the light to those eyes. But the soul is gone.
He turned her into a zombie. Did he expect affection? Good old Neil heads to Dr. Brunner for help, and the priest shows him that zombieism is the law of Haiti.
There's two explanations that strike me. Either the body was stolen by members of a death cult that use human bones in their ceremonies, or else she's not dead.
There's superstitions in Haiti that the natives brought here from Africa. Some of them can be traced back as far as ancient Egypt, and beyond that yet, in the countries that was old when Egypt was young.
Wherever there is a superstition, you will find there is also a practice.
Well, surely you don't think she's alive in the hands of natives? Oh, no, better dead than that.
Excuse me, please. Have you got a match? The law of Haiti acknowledges the possibility of being buried alive.
Before we get through with this thing, we may uncover sins that even the devil would be ashamed of.
They make a plan to go to the zombie mill and look for Madeline. Neil and Brunner work out a little stick around needing a match to light a pipe. Around the same time, Beaumont heads to the mill to see if he can get Madeline de-zombied.
You must bring her back. Aren't you trifle afraid, monsieur?
How do you suppose those eyes will regard you?
When the brain is able to understand.
However, you can't trust a guy named Murder. Murder wants to keep Madeline and tricks Beaumont into drinking some zombie juice in a wine glass. It seems like Silver is in on the plan, but then the Hinch zombies come and throw him 2 feet into the water where he screams and dies. Murder hangs out with Beaumont as the zombie drug starts to take effect. Murder carves a candle into the shape of a male and asks questions as Beaumont slowly turns into a zombie. Neil and Brunner meet with Pierre, Dan Crimmins, an old witch doctor friend of the preacher's. Pierre gives him some advice, but is too old to make the journey himself.
There are evil spirits in the road. I will give you an awanga.
As they leave, Neil shows signs of coming down with a fever. Could be a hangover, though. Brunner and Neil set up a lean-to on the beach below the zombie mill, which in reality is a castle on a cliff. Neil is too sick to go on, so Brunner heads for the mill. Madeline walks out onto the balcony and looks towards where Neil is camped. They begin to sense each other. The cinematographer does a really nice diagonal splice of the two lovers with some fades and zooms. When Madeline walks, she loses her zombie shuffle sometimes as she fades in and out. Neil gets up and makes his way to the castle. He gets to the room just outside of where Murder and Beaumont are doing their thing and lays down on a couch for a nap. Murder finds Neil and summons Madeline to kill him. There's a mental battle between Murder and Madeline, but she finally raises the knife to strike. A caped arm reaches out and knocks the knife from her hand. For a minute I thought it might be the Phantom of the Opera. Madeline heads to the parapet with the recently awoken Neil in hot pursuit. Murder and his hench zombies head to the parapet for some killing. Neil shoots one of the henchmen to no effect. The Cape Brunner shows up and clunks Murder on the head with a blackjack or a maquilador. The hench zombies follow their last command and walk off the ledge. Madeline almost comes back, but Murder gets up and resumes control. About this time, Beaumont comes down the stairs and knocks Murder off the ledge to his death. Beaumont is not far behind Murder, with Buzzard snipping at his heels. Madeline comes back from Zombieland, and as her and Neil embrace to kiss, Brunner breaks in and asks for a match.
Madeline, my darling.
I dream.
Excuse me, please. Have you got a match?
I think she would have had zombie breath anyway. World famous summary. Love triangle turns into a cube and ends badly. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Remember, you can find all of the links at snarkymoviereviews.com, and I appreciate those reviews in iTunes.